Hello, good morning. Good morning and hello. What is up, responsible day traders? Today is Monday, February 28th, 2022. I am Lindsay Duff, and this is Responsible Day Trading. So I was out all week last week, went on a little vacay, so I was not able to do my Monday morning video. I'm hoping I'm going to get this one out in time because I have a dentist appointment this morning as well. And the sun is bright coming in this morning, bright and beautiful, just the way we like it. Let's go ahead and pull up that news and see what we got going on this week, and then we'll check out the market. All right, folks, if you want to check out the news with me this morning, you'll just head on over to responsibledaytrading.com. And then from here, we'll go to the drop down market news, and let's see what we got going on this morning. Okay, so we don't have anything today. Tomorrow we have a 9 a.m. and then sometime tomorrow Biden speaking. So we know what that means. Things can get a little crazy when the president speaks. So we just want to be very, very aware of that. Wednesday, we've got a couple of things going on. We've got a 7:15 a.m. So that means before market opens. And then we got a little bit going on after market opens. Same thing is happening on Thursday, 7:30 a.m. And then we see Powell testifying again at 9. And then also at 9, there's a little bit more news going out. Friday is going to be pre-market. So, and as I've told you guys before, I only look at the high volatility or high impact news. If you wanted to check out something like moderate, you could adjust your filters here so you could check those out. All right, so let's go ahead and take a little peek-see at that daily chart. And I'm going to squish this up just a little more so we don't have just like this immense amount hanging out. Okay, and I was doing some homework reviews with some people. As you can see here, man, it came all the way down. And if I could just get rid of these lines, that would be great. So I went ahead and got rid of some of those lines because they were just a little out of control. But you can see what happened here. Price came up back into the EMAs. It's come back down. It has made an amazing reversal bar with divergence going on here at the bottom pivot of the price and the MACDs on the daily tick chart. Now, here's the question. Is this divergence going to hold, or are we going to break through it? And what I mean by that is, are we going to pull up towards this area, bounce off of it, and continue down past this? Maybe see these MACDs just barely roll up and then push back down. Or is this the time when things are going to get back to the upside? And we'll have to watch and wait for that. What we may see happen here is that these BBs start to pick up the pace and head back up towards that top Bollinger Band, eventually breaking through it. At the same time, we'd be expecting to break through this EMA area and start to make pivots back to the upside. But in order for all of that to happen, we have to see a lot go on here. We have to see these MACDs not only get back above this Bollinger Band, but we want to see everything get back above the zero line. And typically, if we can see how these BBs move, this isn't going to happen in one day. This is going to take a little bit of time to get back up, but we'll have to watch and wait and see. So right now for our daily chart, the direction is down with the potential for it to move up after seeing the divergence between these pivots and this nice long reversal bar for the potential for this move back to the upside. Now let's go into looking at this a little bit deeper because guys, wow, we had something kind of amazing happen here. I'm just going to get some of these yellow lines off of it while we're talking about it a little bit. So something amazing that happened here was we had a giant gap overnight. And what do I mean by a giant gap overnight? Well, looky here. This was Friday. Here's Sunday's open. I mean, a giant gap. So, about 100 points, maybe a little bit more. That it just opened up and dropped, which initially your brain goes, okay, well, this just dropped so much, it's going to keep going down. But the truth is When we create a gap like this, the nature of the market and the people in the market is to close the gap. So even though it did this big drop initially, we're kind of anticipating it to pull right back up into here. We still have an hour and a half before the market opens, but we're expecting it to pull back up into this area. So if that happens, as we're looking here on our 28,657, so we had some divergence from the top pivots, which we were anticipating it to push down. Never really could have anticipated it to push down the way that it did. It had this nice little super retracement divergence that happened right here. Well, it's divergence. Price pulls up, MACDs are leading lower, but we couldn't even get close to that top Bollinger Band. And boom, this is our next bar right here, where it just drops to the downside, and the MACDs are obviously in tune with it because it's a little hard for it not to be at that point. But what we see is when it does drop back into these areas of the EMAs, which is exactly what it did. It had the crossover of the EMAs, pulled back, and it just pulled right back into the area of those EMAs. And what we can see here is it's pushing up. What I would anticipate at this point is for this to pull back down. Since we haven't crossed that top Bollinger Band, we're just pulling up near it. I would expect this to pull back down again. Are we going to see it close the gap? It does not have to close the gap. It's just the nature of the game for it to start to pull back closer and closer, because it just is very odd to have this big space between, but it is still workable and doable. So what I would expect is possibly for this to pull back in towards the EMAs with a slow roll right here. Everything kind of slow down, bunch back together in the MACDs and the price before it moves up if it's going to. It is really poised to move to the downside as we'd gotten below the zero line, and we're really struggling to get back above the EMAs, but we're not there just yet, okay? We're kind of in a little bit of an in-between feeling. Because we just kind of skipped out on all of this price action in between here, we're definitely in an in-between feeling. So let's go ahead and look at what we got going on in our immediate tick charts. Now, obviously, you can still see the same thing going on here on the 10,946 with that big break in between, the price action. And actually, it went more than 100 points, because if we're looking at this, it went from 43.90 all the way down to about 42.50. So it went about 150 points, is a little bit closer to what the look is. So let's just talk about this little area first right in here. It's a little hard to read because of the big gap. But we can see we're trying to push up and get back above the EMAs. We have tried to move this bias to the upside on the 10,946 as we've gotten back above the EMAs, and we're really working. It has gotten back above the zero line, but we can see that lower Bollinger Band is still below it. So we kind of anticipate it to come down and meet just a little bit, especially when I'm looking at my 1597. It is still poised to the downside, but we're at the EMAs and we're at the zero line. So this is definitely something I would let work itself out a little bit before I tried to take anything. If I am looking at the immediate and saying, okay, what immediate do I have? We've got a mixed bag, y'all, because we've just barely broken back above here, telling us that the bias is up. We are back above here, but it looks like it's really trying to push this move back to the downside. So while the bias is to the upside, you can see we've had some divergence in the bigger picture here. So we would expect it to push back down, which it did. It pushed back down towards the EMAs, towards the zero line, which is what we anticipate. But we really want to see this pull around and these MACDs start to roll to the upside if we're going to really anticipate this to continue up. It looked like it was really giving it a try of going back up, but we didn't quite make it there just yet, because look what happened. We started to roll back up just a little bit here. But if we look at our smaller tick chart, we couldn't really break that top Bollinger Band. We started to make reversal bars saying that we might see this push back down, and we still stayed outside of the Bollinger Bands on the 1597. So really expecting this to give us at least a move back down towards the EMAs, or is this going to be the one that pushes it back down as we see the MACDs stay outside of the Bollinger Bands? All I really know is with this big gap, I really like to let things work itself out just a little bit more than what we can see here, considering that it is a little difficult to read. If I was going to trade this right now, I would trade the immediate moments, and I would have needed to be back in either back here or back here so I could have a lower risk as this is pushing down. You can see right now it's a little bit too much because these bars are actually fairly huge. Why they look like tiny bars, like back here, let's see, I wanted to look at where that gap happened and it dropped overnight. These look like tiny little bars, but those tiny little bars are almost like 8 and 10 point bars. You can see this right here from 76 to 72 in these quote unquote tiny little bars. So you can see here, this one bar is from 22 to 25. So if we're going to take trades and we're using the typical risk to reward ratio that I'm using, then we need to be very, very cautious and really work to catch these towards the tops of the bars if you're looking for the shorts, or the bottom of the bars if you're looking for the longs. Now you can see how I said I would need to catch it right here because we don't want to have too much risk. If I'd gotten in on this bar and I'd gotten in somewhere in the middle, my risk would still be stuck out here, which I'd really want it back above this area. So we can talk a little bit more about risk to reward and being very cautious on those bars as we get in to make sure that our risk to reward ratio is in the right place if we're going to take any of these trades in either direction. But like I said, right now, I'd probably still let it work itself out a little bit. It's 7:10 a.m. We've got an hour and 20 minutes before the market opens. And it looks a little confused. So I don't like to trade confusion, because what confusion does, if it's confused in the market, then my account's going to be confused as to where all the money went. So I'm just going to let it work itself out a little bit. I am still a little bit anticipating this to push down, but I mean, we're really haven't closed that gap yet. So while it's giving the looks of a move to the downside, we still got to be aware that by the time the market opens, this gap may have been closed. And we're at 43.25. That's at 43.90. So that's a long ways to run to try and close a gap. And there's lots of opportunities to stop it from closing the gap before then. So just a watch and wait and see. I mean, I usually am in the mornings. Just kind of let it breathe and work itself out for a minute, and then get ready to roll. I gotta close those blinds. Okay, I had to close my blinds because it was blinding me. So, yeah, today's a bit of a mixed bag. Like, I would initially thought that move was going to the downside. It looks like it's starting to push up now. So being on your A game, paying attention, listening to what it has to tell you, not trying to force it at any point. I mean, that's always the way to go, right, guys? Also, last day of 40% off with UProfit Traders. So use that code UPRO40 if you want to get that 40% off. Don't forget to check in with Jay over at responsibledaytradingtaxpros.com, so that way you can be prepared for taxes, as they're showing up very quickly. So it's that time of the year. All right, guys, I hope that everybody has a wonderful day. If you've got questions, definitely let me know. And as always, you know that I look forward to catching you on the profitable side.